Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgie Calvin-Smith. Tonight, a frightening situation. 400,000 people in the northeastern Nigerian city of Maiduguri seek shelter and support after a dam collapse puts over 40% of the city underwater and washes away the lives of dozens of victims. Also, Zambia's electricity dries up along with the hydroelectric dams that have long provided more than 80% of the country's power. A once-in-a-lifetime drought has hit southern Africa and demand for solar energy has skyrocketed. And Ivory Coast has made huge progress in tackling illiteracy, but the figures for older women still lag behind. But it's never too late, and technology is being used to help some of the Ivorians still keen to learn how to read and count. But first, rescue efforts and evacuations are being ramped up in the northern Nigerian city of Maiduguri after a dam collapse caused the worst flooding seen in Borno state in 3 decades. The Alau Dam gave way on Tuesday after prolonged strain from intense rain that's recently battered the entire of Nigeria. Over 1 million people have been affected by the dam's destruction and dozens of people have died. Clarice Fortuné with more.
Women desperate for safety as they climb into an army truck. Thousands of others walking through floodwaters. More than 400,000 forced to leave their homes. The city of Maiduguri is submerged after being hit by the sudden rise of waters over the weekend. After weeks of heavy rains, the Alau Dam on the Nagda River ruptured. At least 30 people were killed.
It's very terrible, very terrible. I never pray for even my enemy to experience such a thing. For you to leave your home without any single thing, just with your own personal clothes, is not something to pray for anymore in your life.
Emergency aid from local authorities has arrived, with the Borno governor greeted by cheers as he distributes relief parcels.
We are here to provide immediate support for them. You know, the flood has affected them. They can't have access to their banks even. So what we decided to do is to give 10,000 naira to each of the heads of household, both male and female heads household.
$6. And the National Emergency Management Agency said it will also start distributing food soon. NGO Save the Children warned damages to farmland will worsen Nigeria's high rates of food insecurity.
Well, Southern Africa is suffering through the worst drought in a century. And countries like Namibia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, the rising temperatures and lack of rain is worsened by the El Niño phenomenon and climate change. More than 68 million people are facing food insecurity and water shortages. And the region, which relies heavily on hydropower, has also seen its supply of electricity hit hard. Hydroelectric dams provide more than 80% of Zambia's power, but they have dried up. It declared a national emergency back in February. And after months of blackout, the government has recently only been able to guarantee about 3 hours of power a day in parts of the country. Now, it's also removed VAT on some solar power products in the hopes of filling the gap. Diana Zulu works with the Solar Aid charity and joins me now from Lusaka. Now, Diana, we'd hoped to get you in vision for this interview, but as we've just mentioned, their power supplies can be a bit unpredictable. So thank you very much for joining us on the phone. 17 plus hours a day without power. As far as you're seeing it, how are Zambians coping and what does this mean for their lives?
Oh, it's become very hard. With time, you can imagine what it's like to not have power. Initially, the official announcement is that we should have power consecutively for 3 hours, but that's not happening. Like today, we haven't had any, so I have no electricity. I'm in the dark. I also have no water, so it's very bad. The impact, obviously, is very huge due to the severe drought that we've had for over It hasn't happened like this for over a decade, so it's very severe and the impact is huge.
Now, Solar sales have shot up. Do you think that will last? Are there lessons to be learned here in terms of the future energy mix that Zambia might try and cultivate off the back of this drought?
Well, SolarEd has been operating in Zambia for the past 15 years, and our mission has been to reduce energy poverty in the hardest to reach places which have no access to electricity. But what we are experiencing now is that everybody has been affected, from those in the rural areas and urban areas. And so, like you've mentioned, our sales have shot up by 500% compared to this time last year. And what that means for the energy mix is that what we're seeing on the ground is obviously there's need for diversity, solar being the urgent futuristic option at the moment. So, of course, there's a lot of talks by the government, and, of course, the work that we do through SolarEd, we're continuing to wanting to reach more people. Obviously, we want to cover 100% of the population, but for all of this to happen, more funding is needed, and obviously we need to be having discussions on a global level on what the future looks like, as this has impacted sub-Saharan Africa so bad, as witnessed by what we're experiencing right now.
And have you had much support from the government in terms of promoting access to solar products? Diana, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I was asking, what kind of support have you had from the government or institutional support at all in terms of promoting access to solar products?
So what the government has done is they're sort of promoting what is called the solar explosion. In the meantime, the immediate measures that they put in place is they have lifted all taxes and duties on solar-related products when you're bringing them in the country, but that's obviously tied to household use only. With regards to partnerships, of course, as SolarEd, we're open to collaborating more with partners who are doing related works like we are. Support from the government, other than the lift of the duties and VAT on the solar products that we import, it hasn't gone beyond that, but of course there's talks of doing more work, as we have all heard that the Alau Dam, which is our main source of the hydroelectricity that we have, is most likely to shut down. So the support is there. It's just that maybe we were not very prepared for this, but yes, we have received support.
Thank you so much for giving a bit of an insight into the work that you do and the effects of the drought in southern Africa. Diana Zulu there from SolarAid in Lusaka. In other news, the US has called for African nations to be given 2 permanent seats on the UN Security Council. The 15-member body has remained largely unchanged over the decades, and Washington's also backing a rotating seat for small island developing states. The African representatives, though, would not have the same powers as current permanent members like Britain, China, France, the US and Russia, as they could not veto resolutions, and change could only come about if the proposal was unanimously backed by the current top-tier members and then adopted and ratified by 2/3 of the 193 member states. Now, it's been a year since deadly floods overwhelmed the eastern Libyan city of Derna. Thousands died, many more are still missing, and the city's still coming to terms with the devastation. Belgasem Haftar, the son of General Khalifa Haftar, who runs that part of the country, is overseeing the race to rebuild. The results have so far been mixed. Our team went to have a look.
The sounds of building have echoed throughout the eastern Libyan city of Derna for months now, the result of 155 reconstruction projects financed by a special €1.9 billion fund. Derna was devastated by floods on September 11, 2023, but restoration has made progress and reconstruction of landmarks like the Al-Sahaba Mosque is almost complete.
We are trying to ensure that it is rebuilt as new while preserving its authenticity. The urgency lies in the fact that it is very important that the people of Derna find their place of prayer.
There are some concerns about the lack of transparency over how reconstruction contracts have been awarded. Authorities want results and fast. Housing is a priority. 2,000 apartments have been built for victims deemed to be most in need. Others can apply for financial aid to repair their homes. This woman, still overwhelmed by uncertainty, didn't want to share her name, but said that she and her son received about 10,000 euros in help.
The money allowed me to redo the floor and doors a little, that's all. It was really chaos when I got home. Hallel, my son, was there during the flood. He called me to tell me that he was on the roof, that nothing was working, that the car was underwater. Today, luckily, things are starting to get better.
Some have blamed politicians and military officials for the disaster. An official inquiry still has not been launched. NGOs are trying to care for the displaced, and the dead are still being counted.
We are still finding bodies. During construction, some were uncovered as the debris was cleared. We hand over the remains each time to the agency searching for the missing so that it can identify them.
4,500 people were killed in the flooding. Unidentified victims have been assigned numbers in the hope that DNA tests can perhaps someday offer closure to grieving families.
Well, not being able to read can stop people in literate societies from having access to opportunities that others may take for granted. In Ivory Coast or Côte d'Ivoire, only about 13% of women cannot read, many of them in rural areas, many of them older. But it's not too late, though, and technology is being used to try those who want to close the gap. Our correspondents report.
There are no classrooms here, but there is learning. Paul Marie moves between the stalls to help these traders to read, write, and count. This method is based on a mobile phone application called Alphatic.
On vous apprend à calculer avec la calculatrice et puis à la fin on vous donne le portable. Là, ça y est avec vous, vous allez vous-même travailler, calculer avec. Et ici c'est... Ici là.
Since 2017, UNESCO has trained some 2,500 women under this program.
When you go to buy in bulk, you have to calculate the price. You're told that it's such and such a number and you have to work out the total so you can then make the payments. If you don't know how to calculate, you have to ask someone to do it for you.
UNESCO says 90% of children whose mothers can read and write will also be able to read and write. Charlotte, who has completed the training, hopes that this new skill will be useful for her daughter too.
As it's the end of the holidays, every morning when I go out, I give her exercises to do, to learn to read and write. It's very important to me. It's very, very important. It's what motivated me the most to follow the courses.
La Côte d'Ivoire a une forte population en milieu rural.
Ivory Coast has a large rural population, so access to education can be difficult because there aren't enough local schools, and there's a lack of qualified instructors. That's to say, a lack of teachers who have specialized training in literacy.
To address these challenges, the Ivorian authorities have allocated a fund to promote literacy and have recently dedicated a ministry to the issue.
Well, South Africa's new Minister of Sport and Culture wants to literally fast-track his sector's development. And the loud, exhilarating, dangerous, flamboyant motorsport of spinning is in line to be taken up a gear. Originally born in poorer townships in South Africa, the scene is set to go mainstream. Our team tells us more.
It's called spinning. The drivers look like stuntmen. Spinning started during apartheid when gang members would spin tires to honor fallen members. But nowadays it has become a family-friendly sport. For this motor enthusiast who organizes competitions across the country, it's time to make the sport professional.
It's been growing and just been snowballing so fast. We would like to see more corporates get involved to back, because the sport does cost a bit of money. You're using actual vehicles that you need to build, like any race car, any race competition.
Amateurs believe that these competitions will enable them to help vulnerable young people.
This is something that we were supposed to do years ago. At least our kids will now be off drugs and off the street and busy with drag racing.
And there'll be so much for the youth to look up to, so much for the youth to do.
Spinners are gaining traction on social networks. The French TV network Canal Plus even came to South Africa to make a series about them. The new Minister for Sport and Culture, who himself has a past as a gang member, said he was proud to see the international spotlight on a South African sport.
I'm going to make it a national sport. We've already budgeted money for it. The federations has already been registered. It's going to be one of our exports. Thank you.
According to the minister, this motorsport will be officially recognized before the end of the year.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Till then, take care.